If you're familiar with my channel, then you will have seen the many videos I have made about Chongqing's unique infrastructure, culture, and food. It truly is a one-of-a-kind city, and as I navigated this mountainous metropolis, I was blown away by the ingenious ways that the city planners have adapted to its challenging terrain. From the seemingly never-ending steps that weave their way between concrete apartment blocks, to the glamorous high-rise buildings towering over the waterfront. For better or worse, every single piece of architecture tells the story of this great city. When I arrived, like most tourists, I headed straight for the glamour and glitz of the epic Raffles City, a towering complex of skyscrapers linked by the world's second highest sky bridge. This futuristic construction stands tall over the historic Chowtaman Docks, the point where the city's two rivers meet, and is the quintessential symbol of modern Chongqing. If you are brave enough to take a walk on its fear-inducing glass viewing platform, you will be rewarded with jaw-dropping views of the city's epic skyline, which looks especially beautiful when illuminated during its nightly LED light displays. Oh, and that intriguing-looking building that resembles a spaceship, boat, or tank, depending on who you speak to, is the Chongqing Grand Theatre. Thankfully for me and my delicate stomach, which had taken rather a beating from all the spicy hot pot we consumed, this amazing structure can be enjoyed with your feet firmly on the ground. I didn't get a chance to peek inside, although I would definitely recommend taking a stroll around the exterior grounds. There is a pretty cool Instagram spot here, with views of the much celebrated Hongyudong, which we will come back to later. We are only a couple of minutes into this film, and I'm sure that you can already sense a theme emerging. This is a city of views, and perhaps my personal favourite lookout point is the view from Erling Park. I think its lookout tower is itself a symbolic piece of architecture, as it combines the design of a traditional Chinese pagoda with the typically Chongqing-esque construction material, concrete. Not that most people pay much attention to it, as the view from the top is quite simply breathtaking. If we do a full pan of the camera, you can count hundreds of skyscrapers and scores of bridges, the latter of which are actually a pretty new addition to the city. Being eccentric foreigners with a penchant for nostalgia, we couldn't resist taking a cruise on one of the antiquated ferries that cross the river at infrequent intervals. For centuries, this was the default method of transport, as Chongqing was a city with two large rivers, yet no bridges. But in the last few decades, the city has flexed its architectural muscles and built dozens of bridges, many of which have become architectural landmarks themselves. Some are incredibly elegant, and some are much more rugged looking, but all serve a purpose as they cater to the transport needs of this ever-expanding city. Many of the main roads, and even metro lines, also cut through the sky. But Chongqing is a city of layers, and many levels below, down at ground level, the architecture tells a completely different story. The streets bustle with the sights and sounds of food vendors cooking up a storm, taxis jostling for position, and ordinary people going about their lives. As we traverse the countless concrete steps that wind up and down the hillside, we really enjoyed exploring the nondescript apartment blocks that most people call home. While mooching around in the stairwells of one of these apartment blocks, we were approached by a local lady who said she could lead us to a much cooler location. We followed her to an epic footbridge, surrounded by tall apartment blocks, which made for an incredible photo spot. Before she nipped off, we couldn't resist taking the opportunity to ask her more about the local area.
有很大的变化，在原来的话哈，在过去，这个房子是矮房子，现在我们全部修成高房子。我什么楼都喜欢，因为是我们重庆的都很好。我最喜欢的一栋楼，我看就是我原来小时候做的最喜欢，也让我有童年时代的回忆，我就最喜欢。被拆了。哎，被拆了。因为那个小时候的房子啊，我们家家户户一开门就看得见，这个房子就不行，开门就是门对门，大家没有多少，没有多少互动。以前的房子互动很好。
Like many cities in China, Chongqing has expanded rapidly over the past half-century. Much of the old slums were replaced by concrete buildings, which are themselves now making way for ever more ambitious construction projects. Some of the grittier districts, such as the Huangjia Graffiti Street, a street covered in, well, graffiti, have become tourist attractions in their own right. And like many visitors, I can't resist the allure of these unique neighborhoods. But I can totally empathize with the locals' desire to move to more modern accommodation. One such area we stumbled across was a disused railway, which is home to a rather unique bookshop. We asked the owner how he felt about the development of these old areas.
对，包括这一片都应该整体规划，不是这个地方，我周围这是包括电厂啊、铁路啊，全部整体规划。相对于我觉得是城市建设，肯定那些地方都应该让道。搬到其他地方去，但是再找个地方就行了，很简单。你先把那个地方做好了再说，晓得对吧？你3线离你那个地方经营不好，地方也没找到，竹篮子打水两头都没得到，哎，我干脆不如这边扎扎实实的先经营下来。
In the West, I think we are a lot more resistant to change. But his answer demonstrates an adaptability and pragmatism I have witnessed countless times during my travels in China. This is a fast-moving city, and I have no doubt that next time I visit, it will be radically different. But that's not to say there isn't a desire among Chongqingers to remember where they came from.
可能未来的重庆，现在这个给就已经看到了，肯定是像摩天大楼一样。但是这个摩天大楼里面能够出现一些民族的吊脚楼。
I was lucky enough to be granted an audience with one of the developers of Hongyudong, a multi-level complex consisting of shops, bars, and restaurants. Nestled in among skyscrapers, the citadel-like building takes inspiration from the traditional stilted houses, which were once the predominant architectural style of the city.
因为重庆呢是爬坡上坎，重庆呢由于是个山地建筑，因此重庆的以前到处都是吊脚楼，吊脚楼成了我们这个地方的地方特色。而由于这个现代化城市的进程，那我们这些吊脚楼突然不见了，不在了。当我有这个机会拿到这里的开发权的时候，那我头脑里想的第一个，一定要修成我们重庆的以前我们天天都很熟悉的吊脚楼。我以前也是在吊脚楼里面穿来穿去的长大的。
Her creation might not chime with every architecture buff, but its combination of multi-level construction and bright neon lights certainly embodies both the old and the new sides of Chongqing. Anyway, you're probably wondering what my favorite building in Chongqing is. Well, before we get to that, I'd like to give a special shout out to the Hall of the People, which I wasn't initially drawn to, but was highly recommended by all the locals I spoke to.
我上最喜欢是建筑是大的塔，它的这个顶是仿天坛公园那个顶，就看上去很舒服。
I guess that living as close to the Temple of Heaven as I do means I can't pick that as my favorite building. So I'm going to have to go for the Grand Theatre because it is simply unlike any piece of architecture I have seen before. But I also enjoyed navigating my way around the more ordinary parts of the city, driving over the epic bridges and taking in the light show each evening. Do leave me a comment letting me know which Chinese city I should visit next, because I'm ready to be amazed once more.